Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome to our Super Friday show. You thought I was going to say Great Big Friday show, huh, Nick? Because you notice that I say Great Big Friday show every Friday, but it is a Super Friday show. We got two of the most energetic and inspired Catholic voices out there today. Second hour, Gloria Purvis will be here. Gloria is one of the hosts of Morning Glory on EWTN radio in the mornings, and just one of the most you know Gloria. She's powerful. This hour we got Carlo Broussard with us, and Carlo brings it. You don't need your coffee when Carlo's around. Today, our topic with Carlo this hour will be which Catholic doctrine troubles you? Is there a Catholic doctrine that you're having trouble with, whether having to do with the teachings about God or teachings about Jesus, the sacraments, any Catholic doctrines? Maybe even you're having trouble with one of the moral doctrines of the Catholic Church. Some of the sexual teachings of the Catholic Church, particularly at this day and age, pose problems to one another. Carlo, as you probably know, is an apologist here at Catholic Answers, and he's an author and a speaker, a great speaker, as a matter of fact, and the author of the brand new book just out in recent months, Prepare the Way. Here it is, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. Hi, Carlo.
Hey, Si.
You wore the very exciting electric blue shirt today.
I did.
So that will keep us fired up for the afternoon.
There you go, brother. But you wore the dampening
I'm
black.
dour, huh? Look at me, I'm dour.
You're offsetting. Well, I guess we're balanced, brother. So
I guess we're
fair.
balanced.
That's
Okay,
right.
fair enough.
We're balanced.
You know why I wear this black shirt? Is because all my other shirts weren't ready. They weren't clean. So I had to go with the black one today on a Friday. So people have one of the wonderful things, I guess, about being a Catholic is that Catholicism has very clear teachings. So, for example, someone might ask you something that even though it would make you uncomfortable, a question like, a teaching on a sexual matter or something, that maybe you don't understand fully or whatnot, but you can always just point to the Catholic teaching and say, well, this is what the Church teaches. We don't have to. I find that very helpful in all kinds of situations where people might want to know your political views or whatnot, but you can just always step back and say, this is what the Church teaches. But then the flip side of that is having all these very clear and very orderly teachings means that they might strike someone the wrong way. Or people might bump up against one and go, I don't think I can accept that one.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of times it's due to misunderstandings, misconceptions, precisely about the what, about the conclusion, right? And then often, too, people just simply fail to understand the rationale behind it. So they might not be totally opposed to the what. They don't understand the rationale behind it. And so they're inquiring, their obstacle may very well be the reasons behind the what, the whys behind the what. So as Catholics, it's imperative that we not only understand the what in order to clarify misconceptions. You worship Mary. No, we don't. You believe in three gods because you profess the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. No, we don't. One God, three persons, right? So that's the what. But then once you clarify the misconceptions with the correct what we believe, well, then that brings up the following question, well, why do we believe it? And that's where we engage in apologetics. Catechesis is technically the what, A, B, C, D, F, G, and then here are the reasons why. Whether that's just simply a rational explanation or we're trying to actually persuade someone and addressing an objection, right? And that's where apologetics comes into play. And that's why apologetics is important. Precisely because it gives the rationale behind the what in order to persuade the intellect to assent to the truth. Because a lot of times the intellect has a hard time assenting to the what unless it first knows the why behind it.
Right.
Now, as Catholics, we're able to assent to the whats of certain things, certain doctrines of the Church, even though we don't understand the why or the rationale. But that assent is indeed based on a reason why I should even assent to these teachings because of the foundation, the reasonable foundation of Jesus being God, rising from the dead, and establishing a church to guide and to lead us. So our assent to the what, even though we don't understand the why, is reasonable because we have this sort of presupposed reasonable conclusion that, yeah, I'm going to assent to this belief because Jesus is God and he gave me the church to teach us this thing. And so I can assent based upon the authority of Christ invested in the church.
And it's a matter of trust. Once
That's
you have decided, once you've come to the point where you go, wow, I really can trust Jesus, and I really can trust that he invested the church with authority.
That's right.
Then it's very, I suppose it's the same with my wife. Like if she says, we're going to do it this way, not that way on something, I don't always have to have an explanation why. I trust that she's got the best interest of our family at heart, and she basically knows what she's doing.
But unlike your wife, Jesus and the church that he established is infallible.
Could you tell her that? Please, can we call her? Can we get her on the line right now? And Carl can tell her that. 888-318-7884 is our number, 888-31-TRUTH. If you have a Catholic doctrine that you struggle with, or one that you would just like to hear an explanation for, a justification for, give us a call, 888-318-7884.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, Si, and that even though we assent to certain doctrines that the church teaches, even though we don't understand the rationale behind it, and that's rational, it is important that we proceed forward in our inquiry to understand the rationale behind it and the why.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a classic example. Just recently, I've been trying to do some research, right, on the question of how is it that the three persons in the Trinity, right? We say three persons, one God, right? And, in philosophy, we say God is absolutely simple, right? Yeah. There's no distinction. There's no composition in him between essence and existence, right? He has no accidents, all of this philosophical stuff. So God is absolutely simple. But yet, in the Christian faith, we profess that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three distinct persons, right?
Right.
So how do you reconcile? This is a very important question. How do you reconcile a distinction of persons, but yet an absolutely simple God? They seem, on face value, to be incompatible. And that's it's important. We say, okay, three persons, one God, but then many will object and say, well, that makes three gods. And so how do you reconcile the one divine, simple nature of God, but yet these three persons in that one divine nature? So I've been doing some research trying to understand the rationale or the why behind the what, in order to make it more intelligible for people and more persuasive for people to accept the what, right? So it's important that we assent to the what based upon the authority of Christ and the church that Christ established, and then we proceed forward to understand the why. So faith seeking understanding.
Amen to that. And I think one of the things, too, that you find as you go through these doctrines, sometimes the objection to a doctrine is a good-hearted objection, but you find out when you learn what that doctrine is truly about, that good-hearted objection gives way to something much, much better. And I'm thinking of the modern objection to Jesus as the unique Savior. Well, he's just like these other religious leaders. He's just like, but when you find out what the church actually teaches, what we mean when we say Jesus is the one unique Savior, is something wonderful happened. God became a man. This is not like anything else that ever happened in history, and it changes our relationship with God. It changes our relationship with one another. It changes our understanding of what it means to be a human being.
Right.
All of that follows from something that people might emotionally right away resist. Say, why? He's not unique. There's lots of religious teachers in the world.
Right. Yeah, well, the beauty of it is that, see, many times in modernity, modern people seem, or not necessarily modern people, the ancients, at the time of Jesus would have thought this as well, but the idea that if Jesus is the only unique Savior, well, then that means somebody who doesn't profess him as Lord, they're automatically going to hell, right?
Yeah.
So there's this idea that the exclusive nature of the salvific power, right, that Christ has by virtue of being the God-man automatically excludes anybody who doesn't believe in him in a positive way. But yet we can clarify that and respond and say, no, the beautiful thing about Jesus being the only unique means by which we can be saved is that his grace can be applied even to those who are not responsible for their ignorance of Jesus Christ, you see? Now, those who make a positive act of the will and know intellectually that he is God and say no, well then if they die in that state of rejection, they can't spend an eternity with him because they've rejected love itself, right?
Yeah.
But given the fact that Jesus is God, well then he, by virtue of his divine nature, is all-knowing, so he has insight to the deepest depths of the human heart and what's going on in the human mind and in the human will to know if a person has full knowledge or full deliberate consent or not. Yeah. So he's able to apply those graces of salvation even to those outside the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church, outside the visible boundaries of Christianity itself, on condition that, those people aren't responsible for their ignorance. If they have invincible ignorance, is what we call that in theology. So that Jesus is the only way to heaven, to perfect and definitive happiness, is not a downer, it's not bad news. It's good news.
Yeah, right.
Because the possibility of salvation is offered to all.
Carlo Broussard is our guest. Our topic: which Catholic doctrine is giving you trouble? Which Catholic doctrine troubles you? If you've got one that troubles you and you'd like to ask Carlo about it, give us a call. 888-31-TRUTH. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with your calls for Carlo right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hang on. Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions of our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription of the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or by logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. But better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll up the ante by dropping the price by $20. That's a savings of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now because this is our best offer of the year and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Summer is upon us, and though the temperatures are going up, the prices are coming down during Catholic Answers' first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, dozens of great books are available for $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. This is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for you, your friends, and your family. The spectacular online event offers savings of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Michuta, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now to shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Well, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. We got a lot of people who have trouble with Catholic doctrine. All the lines are filling up. And that is our topic this hour with Carlo Broussard, our apologist here at Catholic Answers and the author of Prepare the Way, a wonderful new book that I highly recommend that you get. But we're asking you, if you have a Catholic doctrine that you have trouble with, give us a call and we'll try to help you with that trouble and we'll see what we can work out. The lines are practically full. 888-31-TRUTH is the way you get on if you want to fill up one of the last lines available, 888-318-7884. Carlo, anything else you want to lay on us before we go to the lines, or are you ready?
Let's give it a shot.
All right, let's start with Natalie in Florida watching on YouTube. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Natalie, your question for Carlo.
Hi. So I've been reading into transubstantiation and real presence,
Okay.
and I've learned a lot, at least more, about accidents versus substance.
Okay.
But I guess I'm not really understanding when we talk about the bread turning into flesh. Are we talking like human flesh or a divine, like quote unquote, flesh?
Okay. Yes, very good, Natalie. Very good question. I mean, you are getting into the depths of mystery here, right? Because the Eucharist indeed is a mystery of faith. So let's start with what you started with, Natalie, namely distinguishing between the accidents and substance. Now, for our listeners out there who may not be aware, that's just simply not some highfalutin philosophical language. We're employing the language from philosophy in order to try to articulate this divine mystery. The accidents of the bread refers to that which pertains to the senses, that which we see, that which we taste, even that which has physical effects on the body, right? These are all the accidental qualities of that thing we're looking at, right? Whatever it is, whether it be bread or Jesus, we're not considering that yet, but just what we perceive, what pertains to our senses. So if I could use you, for example, Sai.
Oh, boy.
You are a substantial reality. The substance.
Too substantial, Carla. A little too much substance there.
The substantial reality is a human being. That's the
Yes.
what, okay? But
All right.
the accidents of Sai are his hair color,
Yeah.
which I must say is fantastic. You know, you
Yeah,
got this.
fantastic, kind of dull gray.
That's right, brother. You got the wisdom going on there.
Yeah.
The weight of Sai, his height, these are all accidents. They don't pertain to the what. They pertain to that which we perceive. They modify Sai in some way, right?
Yeah.
But the substance of Sai is what he is, a human being. Now, if we apply that terminology and that mental framework, those concepts to the Eucharist, for our listeners out there, Natalie, what we're talking about here is the what, after the words of consecration, the what changes, right? So what was bread before the words of consecration changed into Jesus Christ afterward. The accidents, what appears to the senses, that which we see and taste, it remains under the form of bread, under the appearance of bread, under the appearance of wine. Now, to get to your question, Natalie, specifically, that which becomes present under the appearance of bread and wine, Natalie, is indeed the real substantial reality of Jesus' human flesh, but not just his human flesh, his human blood as well. Not just his human flesh and blood, but also even his human soul. That's his human nature. But Jesus is present under the appearance of bread, not only with his human nature, body, blood, soul, but also with his divine nature, his divinity. So that's why in catechesis we say the Eucharist is Jesus' body, blood, soul, and divinity. So the entire Jesus, Natalie, is there under the appearance of bread and under the appearance of wine. So it's not just his flesh. It's not just his blood. It's the whole Jesus, both with human nature and divine nature. So the bottom line to your question, Natalie, is yes, it's real human flesh, but it doesn't appear to our senses in the mode or the manner as human flesh normally does. It's under the appearance or the guise of bread, and that's where the miracle lies. I mean, the only difference between the miracle of the Eucharist in an ordinary sense and a miracle, technically speaking, is that it's not pertaining to our senses, right? But indeed, what God is doing, Natalie, in the Eucharist is changing the substantial reality, the whatness of the bread into Jesus himself, but yet the accidents remaining. And that is not something we find in common human experience. Therein lies the miracle of every consecration of the Eucharist.
May I just say one thing that it might be helpful to
Okay.
Natalie as well, and that is that the glorified flesh of Jesus, the risen
Good point.
flesh of Jesus, it's not the same as if it's not cannibalism.
That is
we're
correct,
engaged in.
because the mode and the manner in which we're partaking of his real flesh is not in a grotesque cannibalistic mode, and nor is it partaking of the flesh of a dead corpse, which is what cannibalism involves. The flesh that we partake of in the Eucharist from Christ is his glorified flesh. It's the glorified Jesus, right? By virtue of his glorified body, which allows for him to multi-locate, right? To be present in this local manner, right? Because Jesus is not over there outside of the tabernacle. He's there in the tabernacle, so there's a locality there. But it's because of his glorified body that he's able to be substantially present in all the Catholic churches, in all churches that have valid Eucharists throughout the entire world, multi-locating, being in many different spatial locations at the same time. And that's a miracle in and of itself.
All right, Natalie, that was a lot. Your response?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate that.
Wow. I am so happy to hear that. I guess there's two ways that could have gone. One could have been, I need to listen to that again, or two, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to hear that. Good for you,
Yeah,
Natalie.
I've just been reading about it a lot, so I'm really glad
Beautiful.
to get that clarification.
Well, keep it up, Natalie. You're doing a great job. God bless you.
Great. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you, Natalie. We go now to Susan here in California, listening on EWTN. Susan, thanks so much for your call. Your question for Carlo.
My question is, I'm in my car, first of all, so I do not have my paperwork in front of me of the research that we've been doing, but
Okay.
it is about birth control in marriage.
Okay.
The rationale behind it. Struggling as a mom to give wisdom to my children,
Sure.
that I have substantially educated to do quite well through God's grace.
Okay.
And I just hesitate to embark upon that part of the doctrine because it seems as though it prevents women from definitely being able to pursue the God-given talents that they're given, rather than having to maybe stay pregnant for 20 years. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Okay, I think I see where you're coming from, Susan. Okay, first of all, let me just establish some common ground with you in that I acknowledge with you, and the church would acknowledge with you, that women, of course, have gifts, talents, and skills, right, that they ought to be able to discern, to pursue, all right, and to develop. Now, with that said, listen, Susan, we all have talents and skills, right, that we're going to have to make choices whether to pursue to actualize those potentials or not. I mean, there's a lot of other things that I could have chosen to actualize in my life, but given the nature of family life, right, and being a husband and a father, I have to put those things aside and pursue to actualize other talents and skills. So just because we have a talent or skill, Susan, doesn't mean we necessarily have to actualize those potentials. We're going to have to make choices in life and discern. And if you choose family life and choose to have children, well, you're going to have to make certain sacrifices, right? And deny certain things, certain desires that you used to have, etc. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road, Susan. Even though it's good to pursue, to actualize talents and skills, right, and to use those talents and skills in your life, we are never permitted to do what is intrinsically evil in order to use those talents and skills, right? So let's say, I mean, I would challenge the assumption that, you know, having a child and being pregnant necessarily keeps you from using all your talents and skills, because there's talents and skills that you can use in being a mother, right? But Susan, we have to first ask this question. Is birth control in the form of contraception, right, thwarting the procreative end of our sexual faculties, our sexual powers, and what sex is for? So we're actively engaging in this sexual act and actively thwarting the end or the purpose for which it's naturally designed for. The question is that morally permitted? And when you go through the philosophical analysis of it, Susan, when you look at that, we come to the conclusion that no, it's not morally permitted. It's an intrinsically evil act. And once you get that in place, Susan, well, then it follows from that of why, the rationale of why a woman or the couple itself would not be able to use contraception in whatever form it may be, in order that the woman can use her talents and skills to do other things. Using talents and skills to do other things is great, but we can never do what is intrinsically evil in order to accomplish those goals. So, Susan, I think the problem that you're facing is you first have to get the starting point correct. Is birth control intrinsically evil or not? Because if it's not, well, then obviously, yeah, sure, go ahead and pursue your talents and skills. Use your talents and skills for things. But if it is intrinsically evil, which we can demonstrate by the natural light of human reason and also by divine revelation that it is intrinsically evil, well, then we can never use that means or use that in order to free ourselves up to be able to do other things. What do you think of that, Susan?
I see where you're going on this, and I understand what you're saying, but the fact that it's intrinsically evil, I would love to know where the divine revelation comes and tells us that it is intrinsically evil in a loving marriage where God put two people together.
Okay, Susan, I unfortunately we have to do that after the break. So if you can, please hang on. We got to take a quick break. We'll be back to answer that question and with more questions for Carla Broussard right after this.
Peggy Normandin. I was really pretty vain in my mid-20s. I was consumed with all those, superficial trappings in life. Well, during this time, I had a dream where my grandmother appeared to me. She was a very loving, plain, modest woman of great faith. Well, in the dream, she was absolutely radiant. And she said, "This is what I look like now. Everything is perfect in heaven, Peggy. This is all that matters." What a powerful spiritual wake-up call that was.
Call Me Catholic with Peggy Normandin. Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
It might be said that anti-Catholic notions of the Church's history are the original fake news. With all the misinformation being spread, where does one look for the truth? In The Real Story of Catholic History, Professor Steve Weidenkopf gives you the facts on over 50 of the most common misconceptions about Catholic history and shows how to answer them simply and powerfully. Whether it's to answer claims about Catholicism's supposedly pagan origins, old myths about the Inquisition that never seem to go away, or more modern errors that anti-Catholics put forth, The Real Story of Catholic History is an essential resource for every Catholic's bookshelf. Order your copy of The Real Story of Catholic History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves. I feel like Bruce Springsteen's going to start singing every time that harmonica comes in there. Welcome back. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Carla Broussard is our guest, and on the line we have, I should tell you that the topic for today is if you any doctrine that troubles you about the Catholic Church. If you have a Catholic doctrine that troubles you, give us a call, 888-318-7884. On the line is Susan, and we began talking about, Susan asked about birth control,
right,
and the root of that teaching, and we left with your claim that birth control is a intrinsically evil act.
Correct.
And Susan's question to you was, well, where do we get that idea that it is?
Susan, are you still there?
I am still here, and
Okay.
I just want to clarify to you. I have 4 children.
Sure.
Right. I understand the sacrifices of
Right.
talent and treasure and everything else that
Beautiful.
takes to raise 4 children. So I'm coming from that place.
Yeah.
However,
Yep.
in our world today,
Right.
the justification for this with divine revelation, and I'd love to see it. Where
Sure.
where to
Sure.
say that.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, God bless you for your 4 children and making the sacrifices for your children. But you see, this is why this question is so important, because the question of whether we can engage in sexual activity while thwarting or frustrating the procreative end, right?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with being subjectively being open to life and being generous or being selfish, right? That's an aspect, right? But in Susan's case, right, there are many couples out there who are generous and have 4, 5, 6 children, but yet would still use contraception. But the church is saying, even though those families, those couples, right, are being generous with life and making all of these sacrifices, still that act itself is intrinsically evil, and thus they ought not to do it. So this is why getting to the root of the problem, right, of why this is wrong is so important. So to address your question, Susan, concerning divine revelation and Scripture, the passage that has been traditionally referred to is found in Genesis chapter 38. Just read the chapter there, Susan. Right around verse 9, that's the money quote, 9 through 10, verses 9 through 10. But the gist of it, Susan, is that, you know, you have this gentleman named Onan, and his brother dies. And according to the Deuteronomic law at the time, right, according to the law of Deuteronomy, if your brother dies and leaves his wife a widow, then you have a duty to marry your brother's wife, right, and to go into her and to bear children in the name of your brother, right?
Okay.
So what we read about in Genesis chapter 38, Susan, is Onan, we're told, goes into the wife, the widow of his dead brother but in doing so, he spills his seed. And the Lord takes his life. He drops dead. He dies immediately. Why? Because the Bible says that he had greatly offended the Lord. What he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord. So the early Christians have always looked at this passage as an indication that, at least from the divine revelation perspective, we have evidence that God is displeased with this form of frustrating, this act of frustrating the sexual act and thwarting the end for which it's made, namely to bear offspring, right? Now, Susan, that's scriptural evidence, but the church actually has always based her rejection of contraception, of thwarting the procreative end of our sexual activity, based on the natural light of human reason, what we call the natural moral law, because there is an inherent irrationality to use a faculty, whether it's our sexual faculty or even our communicative faculty, right, and lying, to use a faculty while actively frustrating the end for which it's made, or directing that faculty to an end that contradicts or goes against what it's made for. So when I use my communicative faculty to speak to you, right, and what I'm speaking to you goes against or contradicts or is at odds with what's in the mind, I'm violating or perverting that faculty, thus I'm lying. So it's wrong. It's bad for me. So too when I use my sexual faculty and actively thwart the end for which it's made, there's an inherent irrationality in there. And as such, it's an act against my good and an act against the good of the other, and thus cannot be an expression of love. So for these reasons, Susan, the church has always proclaimed that contraception is intrinsically evil. The act itself, regardless of intention and circumstances, it's contrary to our human nature and the nature of our human sexuality. And this is why we could never employ it in order to bring about some greater good, whatever that good might be.
Susan?
Yes, I'm here. I can go with the natural moral law. I have to say, Genesis, I have read that before because I know there's 4 specific ones that Catholic Church always uses. I think that's a stretch, but I'll go with you on the natural moral law, and we can leave it at that.
And you know, Susan, I would encourage you to check out our blog. Actually, it's not a blog anymore. It's Catholic Answers Magazine online at Catholic.com. If you just type in my name, Carlo Broussard, and you go to like the magazine section and my name, I have several different articles that you could read for free online that go through this sort of natural law perspective of, what is the good for human beings, what is our sexual good, and what are the activities that violate that sexual good, and thus contradict our human nature, and thus go against human flourishing, human happiness, etc. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you, Susan.
Susan, thank you very, very much for that call. We appreciate it. Lots of folks on the line, however, with their difficulties with a Catholic doctrine, this one or that one, and so we will move on to Brian in Ohio, listening on Living Bread Radio. Brian, your question for Carlo.
Well, it's not something I disagree with. It's talking about how only men are ordained to the priesthood.
Right.
I just heard a talk the other day by Dr. Monica Miller where she laid it out in the most eloquent, intelligible way that I've ever heard it put out.
Beautiful. Yeah, she's something else. I've heard her before, yeah.
Yeah, and she relates it to more than just, I looked in the catechism, and basically what I gleaned from it was, well, Jesus was a man, so we all have to be men. And I understand that there's considerably more to it than that. It's just hard to find a good, cogent explanation that, you know what I mean? I know there's more to it than that.
Oh,
okay.
So would you? Well, Carlo, why don't you help us a little bit there then? Like, why? Because I think this question, and you're not raising it as an objection, Brian, but
sure,
it is a very common objection.
Amen.
That the church is somehow being sexist,
right,
by ordaining men and not ordaining women to the priesthood.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to mention, Brian, is, and at least for our listeners out there, because Brian probably already knows this, is that the church, in saying we're not going to ordain women, the church is just simply saying we don't have the power to do that, right? So don't throw the stones at us. Just look to Jesus, because Jesus didn't give us that power, right? So it's not that we're oppressing women or we're opposed to women, and that we don't think women could do a better job. I mean, actually, there are a lot of women out there who could do a heck of a lot better job of in administration and preaching and teaching, etc. So it's not that women can't do it. It's just that we don't have the power to do it, and this is not how Jesus set it up. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I think that's important for our listeners out there to know. But I think, Brian, you might want to check out Inter Insigniores. And in that document, this was a document that's came out right around, it's not one of the 16 documents of the Second Vatican Council. I don't think so, but it's one of the appendices, right? It kind of came with the Second Vatican Council. I'm going to have to go back and check that. My memory's slipping me. But Inter Insigniores gives reasons for the male priesthood, Brian. And it gives 6 of them, actually. It talks about the church's constant tradition, talks about the attitude of Christ, talks about the practice of the apostles, talks about the permanent value of the attitude of Jesus and the apostles. And then it talks about the ministerial priesthood in light of the mystery of Christ and in light of the mystery of the church. And I think that's where it's getting to what you brought up, Brian, and rightfully so, that the priest must be a male because he stands in persona Christi, in the person of Christ. And because Christ was male, the priest needs to be male. But I think another aspect, Brian, and I'll throw this out at you, I don't know if you know this or not or have heard of it, but I think an illuminating aspect of this is the relationship between Christ as priest and the church, between Christ as the bridegroom and the church the bride. The role of Christ in relation to the church is one of bridegroom, and the church in relation to the high priest Jesus is one of bride. So the priest, the ministerial priesthood that stands in the person of Christ, has a relationship, is related to the church as bridegroom. And the church as a whole is related to the ministerial priest as bride. And so given God's design for marriage between man and woman, male, female, and we transpose that understanding of marriage on a natural level to the supernatural level, right, which Paul himself does in Ephesians 5. He tells us that Christ is related to the church as a husband is related to his wife. And so it makes sense in light of that revealed mystery that the ministerial priest would be male, standing in the person of Christ as bridegroom, related to the church as a whole as bride. So in light of the mystical marriage between Christ and the church, and his representative in the priest and the church, then it makes sense, and it's rational, it's reasonable, that the church would say, well, the priest can only be a male.
Brian?
Yeah, that was exactly the part that about Dr. Miller's talk that impressed me, was relating it to not only the marital aspect, but to us as specific genders and people. And that just really kind of blew my mind a little bit. So,
well, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, and I think, too, Brian brings up a very interesting point, because notice here, in the church's proclamation of a male-only priesthood, the church is emphasizing that gender matters, right? Biological sex matters, all right? And that's very apropos given our current circumstances, right? In
It's
our
very
culture.
important.
It's very
Very
important.
Right.
That our bodies matter. And the biological sex that we have matters, right? Because we're not angels,
spirits,
we're not spirits imprisoned in a body, as would be similar to what Plato taught and what René Descartes taught, a 17th century French philosopher, right? Cartesian dualism, where sort of the body and the soul are two separate substances that are somehow mysteriously united. No, as a human being, we are a body-soul unity. So not only is my identity found in the soul, but my identity is found in the body. So what I do in the, when I shake your hand, if it's not just my body shaking your hand or giving you a high five.
Yes, it's
I
me.
am doing
Right.
that, right? So this is very important. The church's teaching on a male-only priesthood is very appropriate given our cultural circumstances.
Thanks, Brian. Inter Insigniores, 1976,
There you go.
Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith under Pope Paul VI. I just came to me. I don't know how. I just remembered it, Carlo.
I was getting confused because it's actually one of the documents in the Second Vatican Council document literature. It's as an appendices. When you look at the 16 documents, it's in there as an appendices. So my mind was getting the wires were crossing there. So thank you for that, Si.
Yeah, plus I used Google. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Carlo Broussard on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Call us now with your question on Catholic Answers Live.
Are faith and science compatible? Join us this September 27th to the 30th as we tackle the topic at Catholic Answers 5th National Apologetics Conference. We've got an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith, including our very special keynote speaker, Raymond Leo Cardinal Burke. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register. That's CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Can you feel the heat? Summer is upon us. Things are heating up, my friends, and that includes our first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, we've got dozens of great books offered at $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. So you can load up on solid Catholic books for yourself, your friends, and your family. This spectacular online event offers saving of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Machuda, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists, including yours truly. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now and all this month to the store at shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Next hour, we're going to have a conversation I'm really looking forward to with Gloria Purvis about partisanship within the church and how do we address partisanship within the church. I think it'd be a great way to end the work week. It's always a great way to end the work week when we talk to Gloria. This hour, we're talking about Catholic doctrines that are giving you trouble. If you got a trouble with a Catholic doctrine, we're happy to engage with you about it. Carlo Broussard is our guest. Carlo's book is Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. And it's a fine one. You can get it at shop.catholic.com. I guess before I go to calls, I should do my job, too. For the month of June, Catholic Answers is offering dozens of books and DVDs for more than 50% off. We've got them priced at $10, $5, even as low as $1. We've got offerings from Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Gary Machuda, Matt Fradd, and so many others. If you love Catholic books and DVDs, this is a great time to stock up for summer reading and viewing. You just go to shop.catholic.com. You look for that $1, $5, $10 book and DVD sale banner. You click that banner, and you'll find all these great deals. Also, for all those things, you get $5 flat rate shipping. Doesn't matter how many of them you buy, you get $5 flat rate shipping. Make sure you make them throw in Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church.
I think as a Cajun, I would say, man, that's a good deal, Sha.
You would, and no one would know what you're talking about north of the Mason-Dixon line. That is a good deal.
But
that last part was share.
Share. Share. It's C-H-E-R-E, but we say sha.
Right.
It's kind of like a term of affection.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
My dear one type of thing.
Right. It's like Stevie Wonder's My Cherie Amour. That's what. Anyway, you were going to say something else? I interrupted you? No?
Oh, I was going to say my peeps there in southern Louisiana, they know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, they do. They know. Right.
My mes amis, right? My friends down there.
Yeah, and I've told you this before, but Lafayette has a different accent than even the rest of Louisiana around it. Yeah. It's really interesting how French it is there.
Mm-hmm.
You really...
Yeah, you just go 50 minutes down the road to Lake Charles, and they talk totally different.
They talk like Texans over there.
That's right, they do.
Let's go to, where was I going? Gavin in Binghamton, New York, watching on YouTube. Gavin, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Your question for Carlo.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
We can,
yes,
thank you.
All righty. My question is, I'm Catholic, and I know that the Church teaches that there's no salvation outside the Church, but I know that can be troublesome for a lot of people, even for me sometimes, to think about. So what exactly does that mean? Because I know there's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Okay, yes. So as the Catechism points out, Gavin, in paragraph 846, it asks the question, how are we to understand this affirmation that is a dogma, is a definitive teaching of the Church throughout the tradition? Outside the Church, there is no salvation. And the Catechism points out that when it's reformulated in a positive way, what it means is that all salvation comes from Christ the head through the Church, which is his body. So to put it in plain language, Gavin, anybody that's saved, whatever grace by which an individual is saved, that grace came from Jesus through the Church, right? That is, Jesus and his body, the Church, is the fount, is the source of any sort of saving grace. Now, this brings up the question, of course, that many people have a problem with. Well, when they think of it outside the Church, there is no salvation, put in the negative form, well, then they'll ask, well, does that mean anybody who's outside the visible boundaries of the Church is automatically going to hell? And of course, as you probably know, Gavin, the answer to that question is no. It's not necessary. Just because we say that there's no salvation outside the Church, that is, there's no salvation apart from the Church, it doesn't follow from that anybody who's not Catholic is going to hell. And the Catechism articulates this in a very beautiful way in the subsequent passages in paragraphs 847 to 848. And it basically refers, Gavin, to the teachings of the Second Vatican Council, Lumen Gentium 16, Gaudium et Spes 22. And what it basically says is that the necessity to believe in Christ and to be a member of his Church in order to receive the graces of salvation applies only to those to whom it has revealed. And that presupposes the possibility that someone to whom it has not been revealed and one who is not responsible for his or her ignorance, well, then it's possible that that individual can receive the grace of salvation. As the Catechism elsewhere points out, Si, is that although we are bound by the sacraments, that is, those to whom it has been revealed, we are bound, God is not bound by the sacraments. And so that means that Jesus can apply the grace of salvation to an individual who's outside the visible boundaries of the Catholic Church on condition that that person is invincibly ignorant, not responsible for his or her ignorance, is living according to the truth that he or she comes to know, either by the natural light of human reason or by whatever religious tradition they're being brought up in, right? And living according and responding to whatever actual graces God is giving them in their lives. And so if those conditions are met, then it's possible that that person can be saved. So in a positive way, any grace by which a person is saved comes from Jesus and the church. And that is what the church means when it says there's no salvation outside of the church. When you look at it in a negative way, in the negative form, it doesn't follow from that anybody who's not a Catholic is going to hell. No, there is a possibility when those certain conditions are met that I've just articulated. What do you think of that, Gavin?
I think that's perfect. Makes perfect sense.
All right, beautiful. And that's, by the way, for our listeners, if they didn't catch it, the key passages in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraphs 846 to 848, those are sort of the heart of the teaching there and what I just articulated.
Gavin, thanks so much for that call. And I think sometimes people get the feeling like this teaching changed. Like before the Second Vatican Council, the church's teaching was different, but there were significant clarifications of that teaching well before the Second Vatican Council, where the church was very clear. This doesn't mean that if you're not a baptized Catholic, you're automatically condemned to hell.
Yeah, we have teachings from Pope Pius IX in 1854 in Singulari Quaedam, Pope Pius XII in Mystici Corporis in 1943. We even have the CDF letter concerning Leonard Feeney, which includes a reference to Pius XII. So, the church has consistently taught that just because somebody's not a visible Catholic, right, outside the visible boundaries, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to hell. Now, there was a time when the negative aspect of the teaching was emphasized in a great degree, because at the time, there were certain times when everybody was Catholic, in the medieval ages, everybody was Catholic. So, for you not to be a Catholic, given the circumstances of that historical time period, it's very unlikely that you're invincibly ignorant.
Oh, yeah.
So given those circumstances, in order to explain that, it's very unlikely that you're not responsible for your ignorance, right? Because given our circumstances, everybody's Catholic, everybody knows what the Catholic Church teaches, everybody knows the Catholic Church was founded by Christ. So if you would reject the Catholic Church, given those historical circumstances, then, we would have good
You knew what you were doing.
You knew what you were doing, yes.
Yeah,
so
enough.
the negative aspect of, hey, you reject the church, you're going to go to hell, that would be emphasized because there's good reason to believe you know what you're doing. But given historical circumstances today, I think one can make a good argument that, man, we're like in the first century. You have folks that you're encountering on the airplane, at the airport, who literally have no clue about Jesus and what Jesus taught and what the Catholic Church teaches. So many times when people say no to Jesus or they say no to the Catholic Church, they're rejecting something in their mind that we would reject as well.
Right, they have a mental image of what it means to be a Catholic.
And it's completely not in conformity with what being a Catholic is all about.
Right, and it can be surprising. And I actually really enjoy on this program, sometimes we'll get a caller who will ask a question that you because we're inside, I guess, the church, we think, well, I thought everybody knew that. Like a caller might say something like, well, is being Catholic and being Jewish, are those different things or are they the same thing? And it's because our society has become increasingly uncatechized. People don't know even basic religious terms. Sometimes it's the reporters who cover the religion beat who don't know the terms too,
Amen to
which
that.
is very frustrating.
And even the cultural mantra of all religions are the same. and of just,
Right.
you just go to Google and you look up world religions, you're going to find that they're not the
Right,
same.
right.
Either Jesus is God or he's not. Either God exists or he doesn't exist. I mean,
Yeah.
there are contradictory propositions where one must be true
Right.
and the other must be false. So all religions can't be the same.
It's because of the schooling. Something's wrong with the schooling. Well, no. I mean, there's so many things. Media, so many things have dampened the intellect of the modern age.
We have to re-educate ourselves.
We
Wait,
do
I
indeed.
messed up there.
Is that-
Educate. There
Is that a
it is.
Louisiana thing? Carlo Broussard has been our guest this hour. Carlo's book, Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. Carlo will also come out and speak to your group, whatever that group is, young, old, in between, enthusiastic, unenthusiastic, whatever. He'll come out and fire them up for Jesus. Just go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. Thanks, Carlo, for being with us.
Thank you, Cy. It was a joy.
Next hour, Gloria Purvis. Hang around for that.
This is Dale Ahlquist of the American Chesterton Society, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
This is Tim Staples, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions to our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription to the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a one-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. Better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll up the ante by dropping the price $20. That's a saving of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for a subscription to Catholic Answers magazine. Act now. This is our best offer of the year, and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com today.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Are you looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker to come and speak at your conference or parish event? If so, you're in luck. We've got a host of Catholic Answers speakers, including myself, just waiting to get on a plane and come see you. Just go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com to get all the information you need to make your event the talk of the town. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
Are faith and science compatible? Join us this September 27th to the 30th as we tackle the topic of Catholic Answers' 5th National Apologetics Conference, Faith and Science, a lively and inspiring event designed to jumpstart your faith. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register. That's CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Did you know that Catholic Answers Live is on TV? What began as a monthly series on EWTN in April of 2017 is now going to be coming to you on a weekly basis. You can catch Catholic Answers Live TV Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on EWTN, with an encore at 2:30 a.m. on Sundays. We'll also be available soon on Apple TV, Roku, and the Augustine Institute's multimedia platform, Form. Make a point of making Catholic Answers Live TV part of your weekly viewing, and we'll see you on the airwaves.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and you've probably heard me explain Catholicism to non-Catholic callers on the radio or engage opponents in formal public debates. I've always hoped these interactions would show people how to graciously defend and share our faith. But they're not enough. That's why I've created a weekly podcast that will help Catholics answer the toughest objections against our faith. Every episode of the Council of Trent will provide listeners with a conversation roadmap that will help them share their faith with anyone. Keep in mind that I hate boring lectures. These podcasts will contain entertaining, informative, and practical explanations of the faith, as well as interviews with the best Catholic writers and speakers in the world today. Visit TrentHornPodcast.com today to find out how you can subscribe to my new podcast. That's TrentHornPodcast.com.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. So happy to have you here with us. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and you may have noticed, I'm going to guess that possibly you have noticed that the world seems to be a particularly partisan place in recent years, even recent decades. Years ago, I remember this, Pat Buchanan said at the Republican National Convention that there was a culture war going on, and he was just attacked right, left, and center for saying such a thing. And now the word culture war means nothing to people. More or less everybody just acknowledges, yep, there's a culture war going on. Terms like culture warrior are old hat to us now. What do we as Catholics do about that partisanship when it enters the church? It doesn't belong there. I think we would have a general consensus that partisanship does not belong in the church. That's not what the gospel is about. But how do we overcome that partisanship? That's what we will discuss this hour. Our number 888-31-TRUTH, 888-318-7884. If you have stories about your experience of partisanship in the church, if you have questions about what we mean, or if you have maybe some suggestions about how we can overcome this in the heart of the church, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Gloria Purvis, who we are always so happy to welcome on a Friday afternoon as we head into the weekend. Gloria is one of the co-hosts of Morning Glory on the EWTN radio network. Her job there primarily is to carry Brian Patrick through the day and make sure that he does all the things he's supposed to do. Gloria is also, she has served on the National Black Catholic Congress Leadership Commission on Social Justice, was or is the chairperson for Black Catholics United for Life, Gloria. Is. And it is just a magnificent voice in the pro-life movement and in the Catholic world. Gloria Purvis, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, Cy, thanks for having me again. I love talking to you, so this is great.
But you got an invitation that I didn't get, so I'm withholding my sense of envy. But there was this convocation, or what is it called, a convening at Georgetown University.
Yeah, they called it a convening. It was a convening on overcoming polarization at Georgetown University. It was an initiative on Catholic social thought and public life at Georgetown University, and myself, and I think about maybe 50 other leaders and emerging leaders from the church in the United States were invited to participate in this 3-day convening, and it was pretty intense. And when you say that people were invited, but there are some of the primary leaders of the church here in the United States, including the cardinal from Chicago, the archbishop from Los Angeles, and I don't know if he's cardinal or archbishop. I think cardinal from Washington, D.C. Yeah, Cardinal Wuerl. So Cardinal Wuerl, Cardinal Cupich, and Archbishop Gomez. I send out my message to Pope Francis. We really like Archbishop Gomez. We think he should be a cardinal. I don't know if you're allowed to campaign for cardinals, but I'm always doing it on Facebook. I don't know if the Pope follows me on
on YouTube. I mean, not on YouTube, but on Twitter. But a wonderful men,
Yes.
and also all these men and women that were gathered there. The idea is to have conversations that are, have public conversations, but also have more intimate conversations about how we overcome this partisanship in the church.
Yeah, I mean, and it was. I mean, they had a variety of people from organizations that, normally somebody would say, what are we all doing here? So it was, what some people might consider, oh, they're super social justice, or oh, they're really pro-life, or oh, they're conservative, or oh, they're liberal. But what we all have in common is we are Catholic, and we, I think it was beautiful to see people going up to receive communion who have on some issues been, disagreeing publicly. And we had an opportunity for the Sacrament of Reconciliation. I mean, it was so beautiful to be able to celebrate Mass, to have the Eucharist every day with all of us, because, I mean, that's what unifies us. And I think that was a good reminder as well.
I wonder, though, is when they say overcoming partisanship, do they mean that, like, we're identifying more as I'm a Democrat and I'm also a Catholic, or I'm a Republican and I'm also a Catholic? It's just that maybe our Catholic identity is not stronger than our political identities?
Well, so it's perceived, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not just by political party. I mean, they were saying polarization, just meaning people being on, thinking they're different. Some people like, oh, those are the pro-lifers. Oh, those are the social justice types. Are these divisions real? Are we really that different, or are we more alike than we think? And we had some pretty, intense conversations around that. And I think there is when you sometimes come in this somewhat of a mistrust of the other, because you're like, are they really in line with what we believe as Catholics? And some other people think that about the other. And so for all of us to come together and look each other in the face and have to interact with each other, boy, I'm going to tell you something, it really changes the dynamic. It really does. It's so easy to see someone as an other because you've never really had an encounter with them.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, that changed. That really changed a lot while we were there.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm one of my very best friends in the world is a deacon, Deacon John Fredette, and his quote that he often gives is, "We can't love one another if we don't know one another."
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way in which we can kind of make a cartoon of that other person if we don't know them.
And it's so easy to, you've heard things said about some of the other participants, right? I won't name them, but you've heard particular things said about people publicly.
Yeah.
And when you come to look at them and meet them and hear them talk, you still like them, but they're a beloved child of God. Yeah. And if these things are true, is my duty to rebuke, or my duty to have an intimate conversation with them to understand, do you really think this? Is that really true? And if it is, where do we go from here? I remember one time we had an evening event, and someone was sharing with the entire group that sometimes they feel more connection to people from other religions who share our understanding and beliefs on marriage and family and sex than they do when they meet other Catholic brothers and sisters who diverge, because we feel like that divergence from what we believe is a breaking of the family bond. And I was like, amen, that's the truth. It's the truth.
Right.
And but we could say that there because we were really trying to get at, what are we here for? What does this mean to be a Catholic? What is polarization? How can we serve the body of Christ if we're nitpicking at each other,
Right. And I was struck by what you just said about receiving the Eucharist together. And I was reading a piece, and I'm sorry that I will forget the name of the gentleman who was writing in America Magazine about it. And the same thing, he was struck by the fact that of how people humbled themselves before the Eucharistic presence of Christ, how reverent people were in receiving, and it left him with a feeling that this is us. This is more than anything else. This is us, and that needs to be rediscovered, I think.
I think so too. And honestly, there are a couple of people I plan to try to get together and be like, how can we work together? Although publicly people may think they're serving the different interest. but all along we have some common threads, and I'm like, okay, how can we work together? I want to get these two people, I'm not going to say who they are, but I want to get these two people together and say, let's have a conversation. Let's get down to brass tacks. How can we work together? How can your organization support this organization? How can this organization support that organization?
All right.
Because we cannot, I think we cannot continue to be perceived as being at each other's throats or at odds when we're really not.
Amen to that. I'm thinking, I don't remember the commandment about being at each other's throats. They'll know you are Christians. 888-318-7884 is our number, 888-31-TRUTH. You don't have to pull punches with Gloria. You do with me. You have to be very nice to me when you call. But, if you have a concern about, well, this sounds like maybe we're sweeping under the rug some of the important doctrinal differences or something, give a call and talk about it. We'd be happy to talk about it. 888-318-7884. Partisanship all around us, and certainly within the house of the church as well. 888-31-TRUTH is the number. We have to take a quick break, though, so hang on. We'll get your calls for Gloria Purvis on partisanship within the church when we come back on Catholic Answers Live.
We're ready and waiting for your call today on Catholic Answers Live.
Howdy folks, this is Jimmy Akin, and I want to tell you about a special limited time offer we've got going right now on subscriptions to our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. You can sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll also give you a digital subscription to the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. Better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll drop the price by $20. That's a savings of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now because this is a limited time offer. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com today.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Don't forget, Catholic Answers Magazine is on sale all this month, all through June. The Catholic Answers Magazine is $10 off for a 1-year subscription, $20 off for a 2-year subscription, and it's one of the finest Catholic publications you will find anywhere. And I say that with my hand on my heart. I believe it. And I think you'll just be so happy that you got the magazine. It's reasonable, it's reasoned, it's charitable, and it's Catholic. And I think you'll be very happy you got it. Just go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, and sign up there, and we'll get the next issue out to you. Our guest this hour is Gloria Purvis. Gloria is a member of the EWTN family. She's one of the hosts of Morning Glory on EWTN, which airs in the mornings, as you would probably guess. Also, a longtime, well-established, and much-loved pro-life activist in the church, and was one of the people who made a series for EWTN television called Authentically Free at Last. Gloria, thanks again for being with us.
Glad to be with you, Cy.
And we're kind of picking your brain a little bit because you were at this convening at Georgetown, which has gotten quite a bit of press, positive in some places, critical in other places. And the idea is to talk about, I have to say, it strikes me, Gloria, that at the root is the question of, are we actually loving one another as we're supposed to be loving one another in the church, or are we just tearing each other apart?
Right. I mean, I mean, if we're going to say, oh, I'm more Orthodox than you, or I'm more, really, it's kind of, is that really the point? Our point is, well, how are we going to serve Christ? Are we being true to him? And, there's a place. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for making sure we're clear about what we believe. There's a place for that. But I loved in one of the public sessions, like on Monday evening, there was a public session where Professor Helen Alvarez was one of the people on the panel, and she spoke, and she said something that was so brilliant. She explained how, her passion from when she was little was always on intimate issues like life, marriage, family, sex, things like that. And her husband's passions are economics and trade, right? And it doesn't mean that because he's passionate about economics and trade that he also doesn't have a heart for the unborn. And sometimes what our passions are the particular gifts that God has given us. And I just thought that is such a wonderful way to look at it, and that we shouldn't assume because somebody has a passion for, let's say, immigration or environmental issues, that necessarily means that they don't agree with the church's teaching for the protection of unborn human life.
Yeah.
And vice versa, right? That those of us who are openly pro-life and working hard for the legalization of the protection or the legal protection of the unborn, that we don't care about the environment. Now, it doesn't mean that we are going to agree on how we should care for the environment, but we care for the environment. You know what I mean?
I do indeed. And I wonder how much too, Gloria, it comes down to, and don't worry, callers, I'm gonna get the calls. I see the lines are filling up. So if you've called 888-318-7884, we'll get to you in a quick second. But we have to support one another in the uncomfortable job of being Catholic in the world, because, for example, if you're a Catholic pro-life person, I actually know a person like this who did a lot of union work and felt that union work was very consistent with his beliefs as a Catholic. But he would go to union meetings, or he would be in places where unions were discussing doing things, and he would stand up for life. He wouldn't put up with any of that kind of, some of the unions have become kind of pro-choice bastions.
Oh, yeah.
That took real courage to do that. And I suppose that many people who said, oh, he's one of those union, type Catholics, he's not one. What he needed was the support of his community. And I want to tell you a personal story, and then I'm going to go to calls. I don't know if you remember Father Dan Berrigan, but Dan Berrigan was an anti-war priest, especially in the time of the Vietnam War, most famous for being an anti-war priest and being hunted by the FBI and all that. And I went to hear Dan Berrigan speak to an anti-war group one time. And I didn't know what I was going to hear, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he got up and he really preached to them a consistent ethic of life, that if you're going to be anti-war, how can you cannot be for attacking children in the womb, that you've got, and this was not a crowd that came to hear that. And I thought that's what it is to be a Catholic in many ways. I mean, I'm not trying to sanctify Dan Berrigan or anything, or I'm just saying that at that moment I thought, that's it. We stand up for what the church teaches in the places where it's uncomfortable, so that if we're a social justice Catholic, we get out there and be pro-life at the same time. If we're a pro-life Catholic, we get out there and defend working people or defend the poor, or the immigrants and all that. So I've always been so impressed with Dan Berrigan because of that. And I don't know much more about him than that, but it's inspired me my whole life that you just gotta be all the way Catholic, 100%.
And that's a thing that takes courage, right? Because we might be in our, we're all comfortable where we are, but are we bringing the gospel there too? Are we holding up the mirror where we should, or are we just going to be comfortable in our silos, right? We're supposed to have allegiance to Jesus Christ first and foremost in everything, not to our own particular comfort, and to say, oh, I care about my reputation in this group, so I don't really want to bring up this issue that they might not be comfortable with. You can't do that. We have to witness to him wherever he puts us, right?
Yeah.
And good on Father Berrigan. Did you say Berrigan? Did I say his name wrong?
Yeah.
Good on Father Berrigan for saying that where it may not have normally been said, and also putting his credentials, you know what I mean? He sort of
Yes.
put his credentials on the line.
Right.
And it's funny you should talk about unions, because I was a lead participant on a panel on labor. And that was one of the things that we were talking about, is how, and we had a guy from the AFL-CIO in my group, and he was awesome, right? And we were talking about the high cost of entering the workplace, and just to hear how the poor people, the cost for them just to get to work in New York City. And I said, but there's a high cost for women to enter the workplace. I said, it's an environment that they expect us to basically, our bodies to function like men. That is, that we're to never be pregnant, because pregnant makes us less of an efficient worker. And so that's a high cost that we have to pay. And I'd like to see the unions do more in their policies and the things that they advocate for that embrace the woman being her whole self at work, and so embracing things that don't penalize women for being able to have children.
Amen.
And imagine if I wasn't there on that panel. Imagine if I wasn't able to have this conversation. And it was just a matter of perspective, of being able to share it and people to hear it. And let me tell you, it was very much warmly received, and you could see the light bulbs going off. You know what I mean?
Yes, right. And that's why we got to have these conversations, I think. Let's go to calls. You feel comfortable? Ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right. Gloria Purvis is our guest. Our first caller is Anthony in Oceanside here in California. Anthony, your question for Gloria Purvis.
Good afternoon, Catholic Answers. It's an honor and privilege to speak with you guys. I love what you guys do every day.
Thank you.
I have a question about media and Catholic Answers, and also the Vortex, Church Militant. A couple of weeks ago, you guys had Bishop Barron on the radio, and he was talking about the Mass. And next thing I know, I look at Church Militant, and they're like really making fun of Bishop Barron and talking really foul about him. And for me, I've been a cradle Catholic my whole life. I am married to a Protestant. We are married in the Catholic Church. And for me to try to share like this media, this great media we have, it's very confusing sometimes, because one media will like the Bishop Barron, which I love, and the other media I try to show it's like demonizing him for not saying something or not. And I don't know really where to go with that, because it's very confusing.
Yep.
I listen to Relevant Radio, and I listen to Terry and Jesse Show, and it's there too a little bit, but it's just like little jabs and shots that we don't need to have, There's always the pros and cons with more media, I think.
Yes, without question, Anthony. I think we're all experiencing that in Catholic media. As Catholic media grows, certainly if you're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show, you must be an on-fire Catholic man, because that's what they are. But Gloria, how do you address that? That concern that even in Catholic media, we sometimes seem to be at each other's throats.
Which is unfortunate, eh? We always want to speak charitably about others. I haven't read this Church Militant article about Bishop Barron. I know Bishop Barron, nice guy, on fire for the Lord, obviously, wants to evangelize and bring the gospel truth to everyone. So I'm sad to hear that there was anything said to mock him, and maybe they didn't intend that. I haven't read it, so I can't really say. But just like you have a variety of magazines in the secular world, from the New York Times to Time Magazine to the National Enquirer, you read across the spectrum, but you also read with an analytical mind. You know what I mean? You can pick out what's true, what's beautiful, what's good, I should hope, and see what's charitable, what's not. Everybody's going to have a different viewpoint, but you can read with a discerning mind. Just because something is said doesn't mean it's necessarily, or written, doesn't mean it's necessarily true, or that it's necessarily that the perspective that's given is a full one. Like, does it have all the context? Sometimes things are missing context, and you don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So things like that happen. When I read things, I'm like, what's missing here? What context do I need? What distinctions have been made or have not been made? And so you read stuff with an analytical mind and a discerning mind, and figure out what's the context is missing or what's present. But always, I would say, try to look at things more charitably, that there might be things that you don't know that haven't been explained, and maybe even the writer of the article doesn't know. But I'm sad to hear of anything about Bishop Barron. So yeah, you're going to have divisions and different ideas in the media, right? But you can read with a discerning mind, I think.
Yes, right. That's the case, and it's also true, Gloria. I wonder if this came up at the convening at Georgetown University, that Catholics have not traditionally been a voting bloc, whereas if you look at, for example, evangelical Christians, they are considered by most people a voting bloc. And I actually think that's a strength of the Catholic Church. It's not a criticism of anybody else. It's just I think that's a strength of the Catholic Church, that there's something that holds us all together, even when we have very, very diverse political, economic, artistic views of things.
Well, one of the things that I remember, and I'm hoping I'm not remembering this wrong, we had a couple people come up from polling firms and whatnot, and say this is how Catholics vote and this and that and the other. And there were several slides on Catholics who voted for Donald Trump. And they said the Catholics who voted for Donald Trump that were regular mass goers were, in terms of policies within the Republican Party, were more in line in terms of their thoughts on immigration and things like that with the church than with some of the other parts of the party. Hard to describe it. Like, they didn't necessarily have the attitude, that the poor have it easy because they have, government aid and things like that. They didn't necessarily line up like that. They lined up more in line with the church thinking. So what you saw is those people who were practicing Catholics that were in the Republican Party were more aligned, if I'm remembering this right, were more aligned with the thinking of the church on these issues than with how the party, certain things in the party might appear.
That's a problem for us, though, as Catholics, isn't it? That you can't, as a Catholic, if you're a Democrat, there's no way you can feel fully at home in the Democrat Party. There's no way, if you're a Republican, you can feel fully at home in the Republican Party. And there isn't a Catholic Party. One that says that takes the fullness of Catholic teaching on public life. We got to take another break. I can tell because the music is playing. Gloria Purvis is our guest. Gloria from Morning Glory Mornings on the EWTN Radio Network, among many other things. You can catch her. You can buy actually from EWTN. You can buy the DVD set Authentically Free at Last. 888-318-7884 is our number if you'd like to talk with Gloria about partisanship in the church. We'd like to talk to you. We'll be right back after this.
Every question is important. Ask yours today on Catholic Answers Live.
It might be said that anti-Catholic notions of the Church's history are the original fake news. With all the misinformation being spread, where does one look for the truth? In The Real Story of Catholic History, Professor Steve Weidenkopf gives you the facts on over 50 of the most common misconceptions about Catholic history and shows how to answer them simply and powerfully. Whether it's to answer claims about Catholicism's supposedly pagan origins, old myths about the Inquisition that never seem to go away, or more modern errors that anti-Catholics put forth, The Real Story of Catholic History is an essential resource for every Catholic's bookshelf. Order your copy of The Real Story of Catholic History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As the legend goes, the Protestant Reformation began when Martin Luther nailed a list of his grievances with the Catholic Church to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany. But do you know the whole story? In Catholic Answers' brand new documentary, The Protestant Revolution, you will hear from top apologists Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin, Carla Broussard, Trent Horn, and Steve Weidenkopf as they expose the errors of Martin Luther and of the other so-called reformers. This DVD will give you a clearer understanding of our Protestant brothers and sisters, and you will be better equipped to engage them about what separates us and about what unites us. Order your copy of The Protestant Revolution today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting shop.catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
Here's one thing that I would recommend, what I call gap time. So, for example, you're driving in the car. When you're at home, maybe doing dishes, what are you listening to on the plane? See, I use all those gap opportunities and fill those gaps with things that are going to strengthen and deepen my faith. So I listen to EWTN podcasts all the time because I also want to learn and grow and deepen in my faith.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am your host, Cy Kellett. Our guest this hour is Gloria Purvis from Morning Glory, mornings on EWTN Radio. Gloria was one of the, I don't know what we would say, the high-powered Catholics, I guess. Unlike the rest of us. She's one of those high-powered Catholics who was invited to a convening called Through Many One, Overcoming Polarization Through Catholic Social Thought. Catholic Social Thought. It was at Georgetown University, June 4th through 6th. And it was an initiative of the Initiative on Catholic Social Thought and Public Life at Georgetown University. And now Gloria is sharing a little bit with us about what went on there, and also taking your calls about how we overcome this polarization within the church. I mean, I guess I want to make one objection, Gloria, and see what you think of it, is that, that not all polarization is bad, in the sense that Jesus didn't tell us what opinions to have, and people are welcome to have all kinds of different opinions about almost everything. I mean, the church mostly leaves us free to have our own aesthetic judgments, and in many cases our own political and economic and moral judgments on things that are, prudential or require prudence. We should maybe leave each other alone a little bit and just accept that we're not all going to come to the same conclusions.
Oh yeah, no, I think when in the context of the convening, they meant polarization in that we were at odds with each other, and not in a good way, that we saw each other as different and apart rather than together as one, that our Catholic identity didn't necessarily make room for the other person that might be working on an issue that we don't have the same kind of passion for. So I didn't think they were saying we couldn't have a difference of opinion where difference of opinions can be had. It was more of the, why do we look at each other suspiciously?
Yeah.
Why are we picking at each other more so than trying to minister to the body of Christ? And that there is a tension, an unnecessary tension within the U.S., within the church, and that we needed to come to address that. And I think it's more about, at least in my opinion, to get through the idea, break down the idea that this person is an other and an enemy, and that we have this, you got to stake your claim right here, and if you're not staking the same one as me, then you are an enemy and an other, and that's just not how we should be.
No, right, fair enough. Okay, very fair enough. And we go now to Victor in Orange County, listening on EWTN. Victor, you are on with Gloria Purvis. Your question, please.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good, Victor.
Hey, great, Victor.
Great. Yeah, I have a quick question here about how, the immigration issue is causing a lot of tension in the United States right now. And even within the Catholic Church, I just recently started posting on Catholic Answers Forum, and a lot of topics coming up, both sides of the issue, a lot of divisions, and, personally, I'm more of the immigration side, taking a stance, and with the U.S. Catholic bishops taking a stand against the separation of children from their families.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a hot topic issue, and for me, how do I want to love my Catholic brothers that are against all that, because they say, oh, you're breaking the laws, they shouldn't have come here in the first place.
Okay.
But I'm like, how can you not have a heart for children,
I see. Okay, right. So we get these. If I'm following you correctly, we these hot button issues come up from time to time, and in a case like this, you have very clear statements coming from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops about respecting family integrity, and that parents and children should not be separated.
Yeah.
But not everybody gets on board and starts singing with off the same song sheet there. How do we respond to that kind of thing? Gloria?
Just having respectful dialogue. I think it's important to listen. Maybe ask why,
Mm-hmm.
and try to really understand why they are taking the positions that they're taking, and then you should be able to share why you're taking the position that you're taking. But it does take patience and willingness to listen. And sometimes you can't just quote unquote say something, and then people are like, oh, yep, I'm converted, and you're right. It's a long process of accompaniment, and I think there's a lot of difficulty around, people break laws, and therefore we're a nation of laws. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we necessarily must take children away from their parents? If people break laws, do we have to separate the children and parents, especially when they've come from a foreign country and the children sometimes are really young? What is the right answer? That's what we should be discussing. What is a way in which we can be a nation of laws and also be a nation of love, I guess is what I'd say. Is there another way where we don't have to separate children from parents and also still, enact the law? That's, to me, the better question, right? Again, because it seems like the people seem to think that it's either one or the other. And you need to ask, well, what's both and? How can we maintain families and uphold the law? I think, to me, that would be the better question to ask, because they're seeing that breaking the law is at odds with being able to keep families together. So that might be the better question. Is there a possibility that we can do both? We can still maintain our laws without tearing apart families.
Victor, how does that sit with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to start. It's just so hard for me because I've been away from the church for many, many years, and I came from an evangelical background, and that's why I left the evangelical church, because of hot topic issues like this, and with even the bishops finally, it's like, wow, there's a church that believes what I believe. It's like I'm home now, but it's also bringing up pain from leaving the other side of the evangelical church with, and it's been really tough for me, but I know we're all Catholic, so, it's...
Well, I would say this, Victor. I mean, okay, so we're all going to, you say, how could you not have a heart for children? I'm like, we live in a country where abortion is legal, right? where a child's life can be taken in the womb. So sometimes I think some of that sentiment, the hardness, not to say that these people who, are like, they're criminals, break them apart, are necessarily pro-abortion, but I do believe that there's a certain spirit that infects our entire nation. I really do. I think there's some spiritual effects of some of the things that we've allowed to be legal. But don't give up on the other person, and also have a bit of patience, because you weren't always there on every issue as well, remember? And the better question is, how can both things be right? How can we come together and come up with a policy that is right for both people? We want to respect the human person. We want to be a nation of laws. And it shouldn't be, a lot of times I think we need to be thinking both and instead of either or.
And Victor, but I think if I can just interject, Gloria, it also seems to me like Victor is confronting exactly what you and the other folks at the convening were trying to confront, that there are people who maybe come into the church, someone like Victor, who really wants to come home to the Catholic Church, and then you see some of this bitterness, and you're like, well, am I home or am I not home?
Well, but here's the thing that I want to say. Look at what we believe. Look at we're all flawed, right? I mean, if you were to look at me, you'd be like, do I really want to be Catholic? But if you look at what our teachings are, if you look at who is here and present in the sacraments, that's, to me, what keeps me, because I know Jesus is really, truly present. And I'm not swayed by the imperfect vessels in front of me. None of us are perfect. And if you're looking at the human person for evidence that of perfection, you're going to fall short, right? None of us are perfect. But if you look at Jesus, you look at the teachings of the church, I think then you can take comfort in knowing you're in the right place.
Victor, I'll give you the last word on this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, it's better for me. I mean, I feel at home with the Catholic Church. I was born and raised Catholic. I've come back. And on the evangelical side, it's black and white over there. So I would have no space over there. So at least here back at the Catholic Church, there's people that agree just like what I agree. I'm pro-life from the birth to death, all across the board. It's that's the way I feel about life. If you're gonna, not kill babies, of course. You got to protect babies, but also protect the children that are already born. So yeah, I agree.
That seems to be the message we're getting from the bishops, Victor. And thank you so much for that. I really don't. People will say things about which bishops are pro-life and which are not, and all that kind of thing. But in general, the public comments, you can never know what's in somebody's heart, I don't think. And maybe that's part of the problem, Gloria, is that we do want to judge what's in other people's hearts.
You don't know.
But if you're a Catholic bishop, and publicly you're being consistent in standing up for the rights of the unborn, if you're standing up for the poor, and I know that makes some people uncomfortable, but read the gospel sometimes. Jesus did a lot of standing up for the poor. If you're standing up for the unwelcome and the outsider, okay, that's your job as a bishop.
It was an interesting I forget who said this at the convening, but they said there is no single issue saint. If you think there is no single issue saint,
right?
If you think the saints were only on one issue and they didn't have a heart for the poor, you're wrong.
Yeah.
If you think they were only for the poor and didn't have a heart for the unborn, you were wrong.
Yeah.
There is no single issue saint. They understand, loving the human person at all times, in all stages, in all places.
Right. I know who said that. It was Archbishop Gomez, and again, that's why he should be a cardinal. I really. Somebody's going to tell me there's a canon law somewhere where you're not supposed to be promoting someone for a cardinal or something.
The next time I see him, I'm going to say, Cy Kellett's trying to get you to be made a cardinal.
He's not the guy to talk to, though. Talk to Pope Francis.
Oh, right. So I'll send something in Spanish over there.
How often do you talk to Pope Francis?
Oh, like never.
Really?
Right.
Never. I thought you big deal Catholics.
No, I'm not a big deal Catholic. I'm just somebody off in the side, that has a big mouth. So.
Okay, Victor, thanks so much for the call. We appreciate that call. We have to take a quick break. If you're on the line, hang on the line. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get to your call. We are talking with Gloria Purvis about polarization in the church today, which seems, at least on the face of it, to contradict the commandment to love one another. We'll be right back with Gloria and your calls after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Bishop Chad Zielinski from the Diocese of Fairbanks of Northern Alaska, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Live.
This is Tim Staples, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions to our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription to the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a one-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. Better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll up the ante by dropping the price $20. That's a saving of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for a subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now. This is our best offer of the year, and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com today.
Summer is upon us, and though the temperatures are going up, the prices are coming down during Catholic Answers' first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, dozens of great books are available for $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. This is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for you, your friends, and your family. The spectacular online event offers savings of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Michuta, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now to shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. closing out the week strong here. Gloria Purvis is our guest, and I think it has something to do with your schedule, why we usually close the week with you. Doesn't it, Gloria? Is like just Friday afternoon just happens to work really well with you?
It works because I don't have to be up at the crack of dawn tomorrow.
Oh,
I can sleep in.
Right.
So, that's what I can do Friday evenings because I can sleep in tomorrow morning.
You don't have to worry about dragging Patrick's sorry carcass through a morning show.
Yeah,
man,
no, I
that
don't
man
have
is
to
so
carry
lucky he's
Brian.
got you. His
Yeah.
career is Gloria. That's
so silly. Oh, no.
You know what I really think about him.
I know what you think. You love him. It's all good.
He's a consummate professional and a
Mhm.
wonderful gentleman. And I aspire to be like him. 888-318-7884 is our number. We're talking with Gloria about overcoming partisanship in the church. And we go now to Harold in Maryland. Harold, you're on with Gloria Purvis. Your question, Harold.
Yeah, hi, Sia. Hi,
Hi.
Gloria. I had the pleasure, had the blessing of meeting Gloria at the National Shrine at the Trinity Dome dedication.
Oh, Harold!
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So I really appreciate this topic, and I think being physically disabled gives me a kind of a balance because I've seen, I've been at parishes where it's really lax in doctrine, but they're really big on social justice. So I'm very I feel welcomed there, but I don't really, I get in trouble sometimes because I kind of have a big mouth too sometimes, and I kind of have gotten into trouble in terms of upholding the faith. But then there's other parishes where they are doing a great job with doctrinal teaching and everything, but I don't feel as welcome there. So I kind of have this balance because of this, and sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere, really, and I really don't belong anywhere because we're made for heaven anyway. So I think that we need to do a better job of bridging the gap, and I think that it gives a pro-life witness by, saying that, like treating people who are undocumented with dignity that they have. And I think that is a pro-life witness because I've seen a lot of times on Facebook that people are dehumanized as, the illegals. Like they don't have any dignity. And I've even seen like President Obama, whom I don't agree with at all, but I've seen him demonized and like as if he's not even a human being. I've seen it with Donald Trump too, just to be fair. But I just think we need to treat people with dignity so that we can express that that it was good that they exist. Like Pope Benedict says, it's good that you exist. That it's good that they were born, because sometimes people who are pro-life act like it's better that some people weren't even born at all. I mean, the way that people are treated. Do you know what I mean?
Harold, yes, thank you so much. Let's let Gloria respond.
Well, first of all, I do really remember Harold. I actually know his sister, and he was there with his mother. So, Harold, I do remember talking to you. I'm not going to say your last name, and I know it, but I do remember talking to you and seeing you. It's nice that you called in. I totally get what you mean, where you can go to some churches where you're like, they loose on the doctrine, but boy, they sure love you up when you come in the door. Then you go to another church where they're very, observant of doctrine, but it almost is like you're invisible when you're there. You're like, am I even seen? Can I be welcomed into this community? I get that. And I also get what you mean when it's a sad thing to see when we believe strongly on an issue and someone disagrees with us politically, like with President Obama or Hillary Clinton, disagree with me strongly on issues regarding sex, marriage, and family because of the policies that they promote. And and sometimes when I hear them talk, I'm like, will you please stop talking? That's just not even true what you're saying. You're harming people. But I have to make sure that my indignation about the policy is about the policy and not the person, right? Because we want heaven for everybody. And I think sometimes we forget. Every time we sin, have made ourselves enemies of God, right? But does he cast us away? No, he leaves himself open to us in the sacrament of reconciliation, always to come back, always to be reconciled. And that's the attitude we should have. Now, we should rightly, forcefully speak out against these policies, but we need to make sure that we still have the same respect for them as persons, and we want them to be converted and persuaded on the issue as well, right? And sometimes I think we get passionate and get angry and react wrongly by demonizing the person, when what we should be talking about is the policy and the idea. And but we want heaven for everyone. I want President Obama to go to heaven. I want Hillary Clinton to go to heaven. I want all the people who are right now at odds with the truth to come to know the truth and to go to heaven. And I want to get there too. And I'd love it if we all got there together. And I think that's the attitude we should have.
Harold?
Yes.
Your take
Yeah,
on
huh?
your take, Harold, on what Gloria had to say.
No, I agree. I definitely think that she's right on point. That we need to tackle the issues, not the people. Cause
right.
It struck me when you were speaking, Harold, about the different churches you went to, that we often talk about that the Catholic Church has both a vertical and a horizontal dimension. And the horizontal dimension is how we relate to one another and to the world, and the vertical dimension, how we relate to God. And I do think, and I wonder what you think about this, Gloria, that sometimes we are one-dimensional. We become really horizontal Catholics, or we become really vertical Catholics, and the saints are the people who had the cross, both the vertical and the horizontal.
Amen. And I think, oh gosh, it's so, and it's such a sad statement that we get so twisted up like that, right? That we think, oh, in loving everybody, we need to maybe mute some of the teachings that are the harder ones, or in loving Christ, we need to mute some of the people who we think are, less than orthodox, or whatever it is the case, or maybe we just don't see them, or they're on the peripheries. Yeah, there can be a blindness that we have when we're looking up or looking to the side, and it does, I think, take some maturity to be both and to have the cross instead of being just horizontal or just vertical.
Harold, thanks so much for that call. We got other folks on the line for Gloria, so I'm going to keep moving. We appreciate your contribution. 888-318-7884 is the number. Gloria Purvis is our guest, and we go now to Maki in Salem, Oregon. Maki, you are on with Gloria Purvis. Your question, please. Maki, do I have you? Well, all right, maybe
we lost Maki.
I think so.
Okay.
I hope I didn't pronounce it wrong,
and they're like, I'm hanging up. He doesn't have my name right.
That is. Yeah.
No, right.
Well, I can't believe you hung up on me.
I know, right?
Yeah, Gloria, that's a fascinating call we got there from Harold. I hope Maki will call back. We got other folks on the line. I think you're going to take them even though they are not screened, and see what we can get for you, Gloria, because we're short of calls.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello, you are on Catholic Answers Live on the air. Did you have a question for Gloria Purvis?
I just wanted to tell Gloria that she's not just a big mouth.
Now, why?
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you.
You felt like she needed to hear that?
Sorry, I'm in tears right now because this is... Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Oh.
It's okay. You got time.
Yeah.
Needed some water. It's 100 degrees here. So, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that I think that there might be a connection between adoption and these children that don't have their families. It just breaks my heart.
Are you talking about the separation of immigrant children from their families?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gathering that what
my heart.
what Gloria had to say, you felt supported in your view there.
Correct. Yeah. And I just agree that we need to find a happy medium, and not such a divide between, my family even. So I don't know. I guess that's even an issue too. Is
Oh, that's a one.
how it affects family
Families.
life.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that point because I had not thought about that, but that is the case, Gloria. Partisanship is tearing apart families as well.
You know, and that is one thing that was really, as I went around, have gone around the country for some time now and talk with people, that's one thing. People are like, oh, I'm afraid to bring this up in the family. And I'm like, what? It's not like your sisters can divorce you. What's up? But it's true. Apparently, people stop talking to each other, people who are blood relatives. And I had just come across the case of someone that pretty much disowned his whole family because they were Christians. And he just equated Christians with hate and all this kind of stuff. And it was really shocking to me. And I'm like, but we have this familial bond. We're to love each other. And we should not let political ideology rip us apart. And even where we strongly disagree, we have to still love each other.
Yeah.
And I say this as someone that has a lot of family, and believe me, we don't agree. But it's hard for me to comprehend that this actually happens, that people cut off family members, but they do. And so I could see why she's very touched about this. And, we need to pray for each other. It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it is not easy, and that's the family is where it's the first place to live out the gospel, and often it's the last place that we think to live out the gospel. We'll be good to everybody else, and then tough on our family. Gloria Purvis has been our guest this hour. Gloria, I'm very grateful for your informing us about what went on at the convening at Georgetown University and for helping us think through issues of overcoming partisanship in the church. I really appreciate it, Gloria. Thanks.
I always love talking with you, and thank you for having me on your show. And thank you to everyone that called in.
Thank you so much, and we love having you on the show here too, Gloria. You can find Gloria she gets to sleep in tomorrow morning, but Monday morning she'll be up bright and early. Carrie and Brian Patrick through another show, so you can join her there on EWTN in the morning. I am Cy Kellett. This is Catholic Answers Live. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live.